Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Adam Meakin, Arwin, Arthur, D Rose, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Thank God it's Friday.
You don't like mentioning the day.
Hello.
It makes the shows less timeless, D.
Okay.
But yes, indeed, it is Friday. As we just these let the cat out of the bag, and this will date very badly if you're listening back in the future.
Yeah, it's Friday, the 29th of September.
I gotta say, Nathan, that was a very weak rebuttal to D Rose after you said the same word.
I thought I'd say it, but I just keep saying it. But there we go. Such is life. Anyway, where are we at in terms of housekeeping? What questions have we not covered as it is the end of the week? And
Molten iron core you haven't done for a while.
Wait a second. Let me say something quick. There's some issues with Discord, just so you guys know. It's like reported everywhere else. So if you notice anything wrong, just don't worry about it, okay?
What do you mean, something wrong?
What kind of thing is wrong?
Well, I checked the down detector, right, to see if there's issues with Discord, because people have been reporting them, including myself. I can't even get on at the moment. So it's just something to know. There's some issues Discord are resolving. That's it. Okay?
Yeah,
Okay,
I've got
that's
it. It doesn't
we just found out down was relative, so now there's a detector for down.
want to be framed the way it usually is, which is irritating. It normally says the word live stream, and it's cutting off two of my guests. But there we go. Other than that, I mean, I've reported that to you as an issue. But I mean, I could correct it in OBS. I'm not going to. I'm going to ask any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety.
We know the Earth's spinning because there's no Coriolis deviation, and it seems like lockstep. Everything is lockstep.
No, we know the Earth's spinning because the water is held to it. All the oceans are glued to it, and so are we.
No, in celestial navigation, you got to assume the Earth is stationary and the stars are spinning.
No, the Earth is a reversed bucket spinning around.
A reversed bucket, I got it. Okay, that makes sense. But that's pale in comparison to what I said.
That's a reversal of bucket. That's a reversal of bucket fallacy.
Reversal of bucket. I like it.
Tim, how do you come up that quick? That was so spontaneous. There's a pair. How do you do that with these puns?
Well, there were three of them, but you caught that third one. I told Nathan it was a weak response to your Friday, WEEK, but no one caught that one either.
He's gone in the depths with these.
I sure didn't. Nope.
It's taking you guys a whole month to catch up. I get it. Okay.
Listen, we got it, but the rule is you got to leave it alone.
Hot potato, huh?
Any evidence that you can have a gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Even NASA says you can't.
Well, that
I
depends.
can show you, but I need a couple of containers to demonstrate it.
That
Or a
depends.
syringe.
Am I a container? Because I have gas right now, and it's contained. But if you poke me in the stomach or pull my finger, the gas comes out. So I guess
What's that contained?
That's you got a shut-off valve and an opening valve. That's all that is. Don't worry about it, D-Rose.
Well, that's what Zanuck said, that there's a valve. Remember Zanuck with the valve?
Well, what do you think sphincters are for?
Okay, are we done?
I don't know. This is a crazy day. I can't
It's
stomach.
getting weird, guys.
Yeah, we're only going to cover a couple of housekeeping questions. These guys are in a funny mood. They were talking about sports in the pre-show, so it's just the way it goes sometimes. Okay, so we're covering Dr. Becky today. As always, let Dr. Becky know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me with a nice, clean, positive comment that beyond saying at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, lets her know in a roundabout way that we did actually cover a video. And hopefully, if Dr. Becky were to respond in any way, she would put, hopefully, a link to our video, helping us in the algorithmic love where YouTube offer us none. So let her know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. We're going to get right into this. It's following on from yesterday with Neil deGrasse Tyson on CNN talking about scooping up soil from the sky. Becky's along the similar lines from what 10th Man's already told us, explaining that based on the research of the documents that have been released from NASA, whoever it is, in terms of their hypothesis construction.
10. Then JAXA's Hayabusa 2 mission returned 5 grams of material from the asteroid Ryugu in 2020. And now OSIRIS-REx has returned from the much older asteroid Bennu, with over 60 grams of material from the asteroid that we can now study alongside the material that Hayabusa brought back.
So for billions and billions and billions, what they've managed to do is bring you back a few grams of soil from the sky. Utterly absurd. You don't get soil from the sky. It's just total nonsense.
To answer questions about how our solar system formed and where...
Why? What speculative time travel questions about what you say happened in a heliocentric model that isn't real, and you're spending billions on it. Just to lie to people. These rockets and spaceships have not been to a sky vacuum to collect soil. It's absurd.
Where did the ingredients for life come from? Now,
You've already got a story for this, though, haven't you, Becky? It was all made in the hearts of dying stars that follow entropic law after their death. Yeah, that's right. After their death, after they implode, they then explode, depositing all of the, according to you, required materials for life to randomly coalesce to form life later in the timeline. Now, that's your story that you already tell people, but you need to know more. What do you need to know more about? You've already got the story. What expansion on that is ever going to help you? Well, it isn't. But knowing that soil is coming from the sky, and therefore the worlds that we're lied into believing are out there, and we'll never get to, have definitely got material. Here's some of it. Yeah, total nonsense.
Now, we've answered a lot of questions like that before by studying meteorites, so asteroids that have actually impacted with Earth, but we're
Says you. More soil from the sky.
limited to how much we can actually learn from them, because as they fall through the atmosphere and impact with the Earth, they become contaminated.
Do they? Where are they coming from? These lights that you see, right, in the sky, they're saying that they produce rocks. Show me footage of a rock coming from the sky and landing. I want to see that. Has anybody seen that beyond the movies? I've seen a shooting star. My folks used to live in a part of England that is the lowest natural light you can have in the entire country. And at points when there was no moon out, you could see shooting stars all night long. Yeah, some big, some small. Now, I don't for 1 second think there were rocks attached to any of them. But the implication is that some of them have got rocks and you just go and get them, but they are contaminated. Oh, well, that's useful.
So there's always that little shadow of doubt that whatever you find from studying
Plausible deniability, you mean?
meteorites could actually just be something on Earth that's contaminated.
Yeah, it could be. Why would you drop in this plausible deniability? It's because it's complete lies.
Sample. But actually going to an asteroid in space, collecting a sample
There
there,
are no asteroids in space. There are no rocks in the sky. Rocks don't come from the sky.
bringing it back to Earth means we have these incredible asteroid that we can now study alongside the OSIRIS-REx. So the mission was launched on the 8th without its robotic arm to collect as much material as possible that was thrown up in the cloud. At that point, the team at NASA estimated that it had collected
They all jump up for joy. Right? What are they actually looking at?
around about 57 grams of material from the surface of Bennu. It then spent a couple more months in orbit around Bennu before being deorbited in May 2021 and started.
There are no orbits. This derivation of a flat plane measurement to give you this Kepler-based nonsense, to assert that you've got robots out in the Kepler-based assumptions measured from flat planes, it's utterly absurd when you really break it down. Yeah, it is just like talking about how Narnia operates and then telling you about the rocks we've brought back from Narnia.
Its journey back to Earth. The sample then touched down at 8:42 local.
Okay, I want to get past the summary right, 10th. Do you know where she starts talking about the scientific method and the documentation therein?
I put an image there where it shows the time marks if you go to the first image.
Okay, so 133 Osiris, 508. Next timestamp. Okay, let's go to
Local
that.
time on Sunday. Then take here, these scientific news to the rare 74-page document for you. It's been written by the OSIRIS-REx team, and it outlines the 70 different hypotheses that they will test with the sample returned from Becky.
So it's right out there in this instance. Good catch, 10th. In this regard, what they're actually publishing is their magic trick, because they're saying these words like hypotheses. Well, that's got a very specific meaning to it. Yeah, scientific prediction. So if they're scientists with hypotheses, then they're making scientific predictions. Scientific predictions are a suppositional statement of cause and effect. Now, I'm going to stick my neck out and say not one of these will be that.
There is a giant flowchart with all the text.
She's already ruined it just while we talk through it. She's already just explained about the flowchart. Go ahead, Adam. We'll listen to that again.
So did she say 70 different hypotheses there?
17, I think.
Regardless, a number. Why?
It's very interesting, isn't it? That doesn't fit matter, does it? 17 different hypotheses.
Oh, but for what? I mean, I wasn't asking you. I was asking in regards to for what? What's the naturally occurring phenomena? What are they studying 17 times over? What 17 phenomena have they got, or did they have one and fail 16 times?
70.
You don't think that catch and grab was a natural phenomenon?
Well, remember, what are we going to do? We're going to science this rock. Apparently, we're going to do science on the sample.
But they've already told us they're not going to do that either. They're going to extrapolate how our life began. That's what they're going to do. She's already told us that too. That's not science.
What Adam is trying to say, I think what Adam is trying to say is you have a hypothesis for one thing, and here they've got all these. And if you go to the document that I posted, you can see all the different hypotheses they've got.
Oh, let's do that. I'm much more inclined to do that. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's so we're claiming we're going to do, as I can see it, we're about to just analyze some rock, right? We're going to might get some compositional information. That's all we can do with it, isn't it? I'm not sure what else we can do with this, irrespective of where we claim it's from. What science are we going to do? We're going to find the cause of the rock.
No.
Yeah, but their science is different than
Let Adam
ours.
make his point.
So that is the point. Becky's initial assumption of what she's doing is not science. She's labeling it as science. She's trying to give it some credence that these 17 hypotheses will yield some scientific knowledge. As far as I can see, she's going to do a bit of rock analysis, whatever's in there.
Wouldn't that be geology? Another pseudoscience.
Oh,
Well, can I point out something that Adam pointed out yesterday? And I posted it in Master B. It's two screenshots. One is of the one you just showed. What are these people celebrating? And they're wearing masks. The other is people picking up the samples, not wearing masks.
Well, before
No
we get to
suits.
that, we're talking about the magic trick that's being employed. So before we get to the nitty-gritty of the methodology of the magic trick is claiming science. Now, you can see on screen now, 10th's gone to great efforts to give us a really good presentation. So thank you, 10th. But he's highlighting some of these comments. Exciting times in science. Also, that flowchart. No. Why are these two things in the same statement? Science never fails to endlessly blow my mind. I love it. Yeah, first time watcher here. I almost clicked away. Thank you so much for being a real science channel. Yeah? That's what is being employed. A magic trick. Fraud. Adam, did you get the list of... are you on your phone? Can you actually have a look at the list of hypotheses? Can we go through them? Because it's just a screenshot.
I'm kind of looking at them now. Yeah, so you want me to share it? Or?
No. I want you to have a peruse while we have a listen to the video. And then what we'll do is we'll actually have a proper close look. If that's okay by you.
Yeah. May I suggest something? Adam, go to the actual channel of hers, hit more, and there's the first link. It takes you to the 274-page NASA document, and you'll be able to, I just listed some of the hypotheses. There's more than what I listed.
You realize Adam's at work, right?
Well, he just said he was going to post it.
Okay, we'll play on.
Gentlemen, can I say something?
Go ahead,
I want to say something real quick. And those comments that you see, you could take them in two ways. You know how you have those fraudulent scamming products that they have in-house reviews, where it's people that work for the company that put these, oh, it's great, it works fine, or you could take it as there's literally people that naive and stupid in the world that trust this nonsense. Take it either way.
Well, I think Nathan said it best.
Advertisements here even where they
Well, they
just like
don't
in
know
the
that.
advertisement they bring forth a guy in a lab coat says like, yeah, we at this institute we recommend this product, when that institute was blatantly created by the product and didn't even do anything except for show up on the advertisement.
These people are being very hard on these people that don't know yet. The people that leave these comments, they think it's science.
Look, all the hard work's been done. All you got to do is say science, and this is what Nathan is saying. All you got to do is say that word, and they think it's the real deal.
Different hypotheses that they will test with the sample returned from Bennu. There is a giant flow chart.
I mean, I'm glad we're covering this, because when people are claiming that we're infighting, when we stress the importance of understanding what science is, so you can understand when it's not being employed, like now. A good understanding of the scientific method means that 3 minutes, 5 minutes into this video, we can say, this is fraud. This won't be science. What's the natural phenomena? You've gone and collected some rocks from a fake place that doesn't exist. It's utterly absurd and fraud. Well, meanwhile, do you think we should just stand by while people call us scammers for demonstrating how it's fraud because it doesn't employ the method that would offer proof? But it's important stuff that you as flat earthers understand this. If you're watching and you're a flat earther, this is how you undo their rhetoric. This is all of their rhetoric. It's a heliocentric rhetoric with orbital motion and soil coming from the sky, rather than what you actually experience in your natural world. Soil doesn't come from the sky. But they want you to think that there's worlds out there. And look, there's 5 grams of proof from a sky vacuum. You don't believe me? Science! No, it bloody isn't.
Chart with all the tests that will be done, including the amount of the sample used for each test down to the milligram, and the description of all the techniques that will be used in all the...
Down to the milligram, because that's really important in science. No, it isn't. That's mathematics. How accurately you've got a tiny quantity of this tiny sample that's come from a place that isn't real. And you're going to put the intonation on down to the microgram. Wowee! So what if I go outside and gather up some soil and then tell you that I'm doing science and I've got the amount down to the microgram and really put intonation on how accurately I've measured it? Does that not sound like maths, Becky? Yeah, it's because it is. But you're flogging this fraud of science. So I'd expect you to detail a hypothesis as opposed to...
rock solid research then, Nathan?
Pardon?
Are you saying this isn't rock solid research then?
Thank you for interrupting my disdain with a pun.
these individual tests, including spectroscopy, for example.
It's not science. That's not science. In any form. What are they talking about? Spectroscopy? Looking at light? That's not cause and effect reasoning based on a scientific prediction. That's a hypothesis. But that's what she's just told you. They're testing hypothesis. Who are? Spectroscopy. What?
But which spectroscopy does she mean? Actual spectroscopy, like in a vacuum chamber and all that, or the one that they supposedly analyze lights in the sky with?
Why, is one of them science? No.
Nope. But still.
It's called analysis, isn't it? But it's going to be lab-based, I think. So I've had a little look, and these hypotheses they're just guesses, statements that might possibly mean something if you follow their pre-assumptions anyway. So, like, hypothesis 3, the abundance, isotopic, and chemical compositions of pre-solar materials in the return sample are similar to those in CL and CM chondrites. Bennu consists dust grains that condensed in the gaseous envelopes around ancient stars of the ejecta of novae or supernovae.
What? Sorry, this is in their hypothesis, this abject speculation and religious rhetoric?
That was 2 separate hypotheses, 3.1, 3.2. This is 3.3. Bennu contains dust grains that formed in the interstellar medium or were modified by processing the interstellar medium.
Does that not just sound like a declarative statement of fact? We say that these slimy substances have come from Venus, which is an alien in the Mars star quadrant. Why? Well, because that's my hypothesis. Notice how when we tell you that these frauds use the word hypothesis, because it's in reality a scientific prediction, and substitute it for a just so story. So their hypothesis is that it's come from a certain place based on a certain religious rhetoric. What a bloody outrage.
If you want to put up on the slides that Tim's shown, it's L1.5b. It's the ones just after the YouTube shots. This kind of shows you what they're going to analyze the stuff. It says, look, analyze the return sample to determine. It's the next one, I think, Nathan. That's it. And look at what they're going to determine after analyzing these rocks, I assume, using spectroscopy and maybe a few other things. But look at what they're going to determine, apparently. They're going to determine pre-solar history, the formation age of this rock, nebula and parent body alteration history they're going to detect from it, relation to known meteorites, organic history, space weathering, resurfacing history, and energy balance in the regolith of Bennu. So basically, they're just setting the stage, aren't they, to be able to go and talk a load of nonsense about basically wardrobe dynamics.
Yep.
Isn't it?
Yep. We're going to talk about how the rocks and soil from Narnia were formed and their history, and how the rocks in Narnia and their formation and history, declared in our hypothesis as a statement of fact, affect our soil and our lives. Because Narnia soil and its development is very important for our understanding. Therefore, we should pump billions into this.
Yeah, we need the Narnia soil import industry, definitely.
Which allows you to work out, what molecules and compounds the sample that you're looking at is made of. So in this case, what is the asteroid Bennu made of?
Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. So you can tell us what the soil's made of. So you can tell us what it is. Yeah, in the context of its chemical makeup, maybe. But you're not telling us what it is in terms of just what you say is the constituent parts. You're telling us its history and how it was made. You've got it self-contained in the hypothesis when you tell us where it's come from, and the place it's come from isn't real, Becky.
Then you've got microscopy.
Sorry, I just want to say it's a blue marble type situation where they will have a real sample. It just won't be from where they're saying it's from, and the people testing it won't know any different.
No. I don't dispute for 1 second that they've got the Turkish delight, but that doesn't mean it was created by a witch in Narnia. So saith the hypothesis.
Techniques to show the structure on small scales of the sample that's been returned. And then also spectrometry, which...
The problem I've got is when you say it has been returned, because that presupposes that the bullshit story about how these people who have just been handed a sample come to understand the sample's origins. Why? Well, because when it was handed to them, they were told that it came from a place that doesn't exist. Therefore, what, it's going to give you details about the place it didn't exist that you were told it came from when it was handed to you?
Which can tell you the ratio of isotopes in a sample, i.e. the amount of atoms of an element that have extra neutrons in their nucleus, which...
Yeah, you can tell us that about the sample. Sorry, how does this have any bearing on it coming from Narnia?
Makes them heavier. So now measuring that ratio of the amount of normal atoms to the heavier isotopes is an incredibly useful thing to do because...
Really? So this will give us what? Computers, mobile phones, fax machines, new communication systems, better travel. What's it going to do to advance humanity, Becky? Let's hear it.
What it can tell you is things like where in the solar system an object formed, or if...
So in a solar system, so Kepler's orbital model, it can tell you where it came from in a fantasy land invented by a man of the church to let them know when Easter would be. Really? No, it can't, Becky. Now, I listed off a whole bunch of things that might actually serve people's use, like mobile phones, fax machines, better communication, better travel, maybe better farming, better food. What about all of those things? Are any of the things that you do going to actually benefit humanity in any way, shape or form, Becky? I say no. I say you are about as expendable and disposable as any individual talking on YouTube could possibly be. Because literally, if you were eradicated from existence and nothing you had ever said had ever been uttered, it would make absolutely no difference to anybody's lives. And further to that, everything you do going forward is meaningless. It serves nobody, it benefits nobody, and will advance humanity not one iota. Nothing this pathetic individual has done in her entire career has ever, and I do mean ever, ever benefited anybody who has listened to her. Ever. Not one thing.
How about entertainment?
Sorry, did the entertainment benefit you? Did it earn you more money? Did it give you better health? Did it get you to your job quicker?
Not a lot, but...
When you say entertainment, in terms of benefit to humanity, while I appreciate that after a hard day's work at the mill, going and watching a stand-up comic can be very, very useful to your well-being. I appreciate it from that standpoint. But in terms of actual, tangible benefits to society and humanity, when it comes to astrophysicists, they offer nothing. Literally nothing at all.
Just storytelling time. That's what it is.
Just telling you about their religion. But they're calling it science. It's fraud.
Object contains pre-solar material, i.e. material that was there before the sun formed. And then also how...
That rustling from her lapel mic.
Old an object is as well. So it's an incredibly useful...
Look, if you're going to wear a lapel mic, figure out where to put it on your body and do another take if you've got all this clothing rustle all over it, Becky. Bloody hell.
Useful technique, but it is one that you have to be careful with because a sample is completely destroyed in the process as it has to be dissolved in acid. So I'll link that document
Nathan, pause. So, see, before the sun formed, they've already got their model. They've already decided what it is. They just need to go through the image of the people retrieving this from some kind of drone that supposedly came from a second law of thermodynamics violation. And then everyone watching this stuff is saying, oh, and everything else is substantiated because look, they're testing these rocks.
They're putting them in acid, destroying them, and then there's data coming out of it, and that's science.
Yeah, let's paraphrase it. Unfortunately, you as a member of the general public will not get to taste the Turkish delights because upon testing the Turkish delights, which according to the hypothesis were created by a witch in Narnia, they are destroyed. So unfortunately, you won't get to taste the sweet, delicious Turkish delights, but you can understand that when we get the chemical composition of the Turkish delights, we affirm that they've come from Narnia.
It's the affirming bit that's interesting. If you go to the next slide, it's 18 of 274. It kind of describes what these results are going to mean. And it's describing, it's such a fancy story. Hypothesis 6, and there's a few of them, but Bennu's parent body experienced greater than 3 billion years of solar system history before being destroyed in a catastrophic disruption. Now they're going to...
Sorry, is this sorry, was that an introduction to a He-Man episode?
No, that's the introduction to the hypothesis. It's setting the scene. Yeah, well, it's the introduction to hypothesis 6 with its subpoints of 1, 2, 3, and 4. But this is what's important. So within this first main headline of the hypothesis is to investigate what happened in the more than 3 billion years of solar system history before being destroyed in a catastrophic disruption. So 6.1 will test whether Bennu's parent asteroid was scattered in the inner main asteroid belt, either through Jupiter's growth or on a fixed orbit and or by inward migration of Jupiter. Alternatively, we're going to also investigate during its residence time in the main asteroid belt, Bennu's parent asteroid accreted meter-scale or larger exogenic material, resulting in inter-asteroid mixing of macroscopic scales. Or we could go to 6.3, which is the surface regolith was gradually overturned and mixed by a gardening process on Bennu's parent asteroid. And these are the things they're going to be able to determine from the analysis of dropping in acid.
Yeah, I can rewrite all of those with Turkish delights and Narnia, can't I?
Yeah, because by dropping the Turkish delight in acid, you can tell exactly how long it had been in the bag, where it had been moved, who moved it, how they made it, what they made it with, all those greater than 3 billion years ago.
Yeah, perfectly reasonable. So says Bennu.
Nathan. But Adam, wouldn't putting it in acid, wouldn't that kind of destroy a lot of stuff that would give you information?
It's part of the important process because you've also got to sterilize it from space aids. So you do need the acid.
Okay, we all clear?
Yeah, they're going to put dip it in acid, and then they're going, after they destroyed loads of it, they're going to start and probably mutate it in some way.
No, then they refer back. Then they refer back to their hypothesis and decide what they're gonna tell you. And because it was already written down in a hypothesis, it's science. So therefore, their explanation after dipping it in acid becomes completely validated. 81 people watching. Please share the show.
That's exactly it, Nathan. That's exactly it. These detailed hypotheses are the things that are going to validate whatever the results will be. It means it did have a gardening process, or it might have just had some kind of accretion of larger exogenic material. And by testing it, and if we get result A or result B, then we'll know whether there was a gardening process on Bennu's parent asteroid or whether it was that exogenic material gathering.
So their DV, Adam, is some soil sample that was dipped in acid.
There's no IVDV. This isn't a hypothesis constructed in the way that we construct it. And if you want to try and sort of superimpose an IVD relationship, you're going to fail on your arse immediately, Brian. There is no way of sandwiching in a story of exploding planets and Bennu and gardening into an IVDV relationship. That's an actual scientific prediction, otherwise known as a hypothesis. So I can appreciate your attempts to say, well, how does an IVDV sit in this? It doesn't. It isn't. It's a just so story in lieu. This is the textbook definition of what we teach here about how science has been hijacked. Take a scientific prediction that establishes your supposed, not yet validated, cause of an effect you're studying and replace it with this. Just so stories.
Yeah, but What I
Don't we
like,
have a question?
think about what I
housekeep-
said.
I'm sorry, Brian, go ahead.
I'm just saying, if you think of, like, that's what I meant. Like, if you think about what I said, their DV, which should be their natural phenomenon, is a soil sample dipped in acid. How was that? That's not natural at all. Not.
Yeah, right,
It's
so
not a
from-
phenomenon. It's just soil, and even at that, you took it away the natural side of it because you dipped it in acid.
Not just any soil, soil from a sky vacuum.
Don't we have a housekeeping question concerning certain fields?
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Well, when I saw that 274-page document, I was thinking about that question. So I started to peruse it. So I just showed a few of the pages. And it's so interesting that when these guys and gals who are astrophysicists come on, they bandy the hijacking of science, hypothesis, science. And then Michio Kaku comes and says, no one goes through the scientific method here. In fact, we're going to be so far off, 10 to the 120 zeros. It is a shell game. The whole thing is a lie. And this is why this video, it's from them. It tells you how they do their so-called science. And we're going to use it from now on moving forward because it's a 274-page document telling you how unscientific the method is.
It's not unique. QE told me this about 2, 3, maybe even longer, years and years ago. I was like, he made a statement on one of his presentations that 99.9% of statistics are made. No, just joking. Of hypotheses that are labeled as such do not have an IV-DV relationship in them. They do not have a validatable experimental process and are therefore not science. Therefore, less than 1% of published quote-unquote scientific documents are not adhering to the scientific method. And we all know the definition of pseudoscience. If it hasn't adhered to the scientific method, it's pseudoscience. Well, if they haven't, which they haven't, it means that 99% of published documents are like this when they say they've got science. Very, very few will have established what they're studying as a phenomena and then supposed a cause of it to go forward to vary the cause and see if it actually caused the effect they're studying. Virtually none of them have that. This is no different in that regard.
No, I know. And that's a great thing that he showed everybody. Now, if we go into the Wayback Machine with Dr. Becky, remember the first video I ever posted of her was her listening to iTunes, eating lunch, looking at data on their computer where she said she was doing science.
Yeah, she thinks she is. She thinks looking at how accurately they've dissolved it in acid and how they've got the amount that they've dissolved down to the micron on a flow chart with this garbage as the hypothesis, she thinks that's science while she's munching on a sandwich and reading it off an email on a computer. That's absolutely correct. She thinks this is science. It's not, it's fraud.
With all that detail in the video description below if you want some light bedtime reading.
Yeah, we've gone through it on the show, Becky. As before, please let Becky know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Share the show far and wide. We should have well over 100 people watching. We've got just under 90, which isn't that great. But yeah, please share the show. And as I say, let her know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me so that if at the very least she did ever do a response, somebody one day is going to do a response and they're going to put a link to our video and people will come and hear what we have to say. In this regard, if it was this video, I'd hope they'd come and hear us pointing out that this is fraud.
But I'm also going to pick out 3 of these hypotheses that we want to test with the sample from Bennu that's been returned by OSIRIS-REx. So let's start with testing whether this material from Bennu contains the ingredients for life. Now,
and if it does, I mean, there's a lot of constituent parts that may very well be contained in this rock that are also contained in my body. Okay, so that for correlation means causation, life came from the universe that is not real. The sky vacuum, where this soil also came from, that isn't real. No, Becky. No. Just finding that you've got a correlation between the constituent parts that are in living organisms versus the constituent parts of this rock of unknown origin for you, the researcher. Now, the claimed origin is fraud, lies, and a thermodynamics impossibility.
Now, the team are not testing for life itself on Bennu. But
shocking, because there is no Bennu. If that's out in the sky vacuum, it's just a light.
Instead, are testing to see if they can find the ingredients for life that are
Testing to see if you have ingredients. See, when I go to my cupboard and let's call it the same, test whether or not I've got the ingredients for a cake, that ain't science. Now, in science, you establish the cause of an effect. The effect being your dependent variable natural phenomena in the suppositional statement known as a hypothesis, also known as a scientific prediction. Your independent variable in the same scientific prediction will be what you think causes that. As opposed to going to your cupboard and seeing if you've got a particular list of ingredients. In this case, going to a rock of unknown origin and seeing if it has constituent parts that correlate with other things that have life in them. I'm going to guess that it probably does. So what? Will it give me better transport? Will it give me a better mobile phone? Will it give me better health? Will it give me better farming? What will it do to advance humanity, Becky, if we know that we've got a correlation between the rock of unknown origin and life itself? How's that going to help us? As I said earlier, at length, nothing this woman ever does will benefit you. Ever. This is no different. If she was at the end of her boring, expensive and useless process right now, telling you, guess what? It contains gold, just like you do. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, it is. Yeah. And that helps me because that justifies your existence and work because that justifies the money we spend going to Narnia because... Oh, it doesn't, does it, Becky, when you really think about it? It achieves nothing. Oh, other than indoctrinating people that the place that this doesn't offer any validity for actually is real. That would be the sky vacuum in violation of the second law of thermodynamics. That's the only thing it achieves. Brainwashing people into believing that there's a sky vacuum above their head. That's all this does.
Actually have thought to have been brought to...
Just on that topic, Nathan, page 12 of 274 does actually, and that Owen was right, they are using spectroscopy of the stars. Look, hypothesis 1. Remote sensing of Bennu's surface is accurately characterize its mineral, chemical, and physical properties. So that the first portion to sample the stuff is to validate that when they do spectroscopy on these things, that when they make assumptions that these guesses are now validated. So they've got point 1 is to Bennu's surface primarily consists of 2 distinct lithologies defined by their normal albedo, thermomechanical properties, and spectral slope. So they're going to, I think,
have a look at it. They're having a look at it.
Yeah, but are they going to match up their guesses that they've previously made by just bouncing light off of it? Is what the first part is. So is it, when they guess by bouncing light off it, is it now validated?
I'm going to go with yes, because that's what they put in their hypothesis. And if their process is bounce light off it, get answer, the answer is almost irrelevant, isn't it? Because it's going to confirm their just so story they're calling a hypothesis. 100 people watching. Woohoo! Thank you very much to all of you. Smash the share button. That's the only reason there's 100 people watching. Please share the show, and a very warm welcome if you've just joined us off the back of all the people who've kindly shared the show. Please share it yourself. Smash that share button. That's a lot of S's. Right, let's continue.
Earth by impacts with asteroids in the early days of the solar system, because...
Validated by what? Oh, you can't, because it's happening in the past in a place that isn't real.
Asteroids are essentially relics left over from the formation of the solar system.
The solar system being an invented model, a Copernican model. No, there's nothing being developed in these models that are being used to explain and predict where the stars might be in the future. In terms of telling us how we were developed in the past, that's utterly absurd. No, definitely not. It's also a reification fallacy. These models aren't our world.
They don't really have any atmospheric processes.
Atmo, what now? Sphere-shaped air in a vacuum? I think not. That's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics right in its face there, Becky. Atmosphere? Sphere-shaped air? No, definitely not. Maybe in your model, You know, you'd have to have it in your model because the model isn't the real world. In the real world, we have the second law of thermodynamics and gas-filled space. It doesn't form sphere shapes in vacuums.
Or geological processes that can destroy any of that evidence from a time before life began on Earth.
Sorry, you say it's evidence. I say it's of unknown origin because it's definitely not come from a sky vacuum. But you also go on to say how it can validate all of your bullshit. Oh, how convenient that this dust in a small, very precise quantity can validate your entire origin story just by you tagging it onto the end after describing some tests you'll do. It's almost like a very well-organised, well-oiled charade of a magic trick that eludes that what you do is science, Becky. It isn't.
Nathan, do you see how underhandedly they're bringing in evolution and not giving credit to a creator?
That's the purpose. This is validating a story of times gone by. That's its benefit. That's what it's going to do for you. Let you know how your world came to be and its origin story. That's it. Confirming heliocentrism and
Look at the name of
evolution.
our telescope.
That's all it's doing, confirming evolution and heliocentrism. Yes. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, look at the name of our telescope, Osiris Rex. Why did they call it that?
I think that was the so-called space.
Yeah, it's like it's not putting in the little word Rex. It's like a play on Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay, I see what you're putting, but I'm thinking those.
Isn't Osiris?
No.
Isn't Osiris the dog star? No, it's
No,
Sirius, isn't it? Which one's
God of
Osiris?
the dead. He's
Sorry?
the God of the dead.
God of the dead. But which star is it?
No matter what star, it's Masonic symbolism. Yeah, the God of the dead is King Osiris Rex.
There you go.
Well, this is what Michelle Fowler wants. Your cousin is the rocks.
Yeah, it's just their origin story.
Earth. So they really are fossils of what was happening at that time. Now,
Because she says so. They're not. But that's what she's telling you. This rock of unknown origin is really a fossil that tells us our history. Is it? No?
from studying meteorites that have actually impacted with Earth.
Have actually. You see, this is why you, as the audience, should pick up on some of this linguistic trickery and go, why would you need to qualify it? Have actually, as opposed to definitely haven't not, it's all bullshit and no sky vacuum's going to provide you with rocks. Rocks aren't formed in the sky. Utterly absurd. But have actually, no, that's just part of your just so story, Becky. And this is your little tell. It lets me know that you know it needs qualifying, because you've qualified it. Why? Well, because no part of the story confirms this.
We know that asteroids contain things like proteins and amino acids, these ingredients
And you know rocks that you've been given contain those things.
that when you have the right conditions and the right chemistry,
According to your religious rhetoric and your evolution story.
are the building blocks for life.
Wrong. No, evolution's been debunked. But you definitely need to peddle that. This isn't going to give you a better phone, better health, better farming, better communication, better travel, better anything. But it will let you know that the evolution bullshit's true, because that's all this really achieves.
And so that has always supported this hypothesis that it
Hypothesis is not what you are doing. Fraud is what you're doing, love. Fraud.
was asteroids that brought these ingredients to Earth.
So say you. No, I say you don't get soil from the sky.
But
I
there's
just want to
always
just interject there, Nathan. That's really bad. I mean, it's a good job QE's not here. She's just presupposed that you can get proteins, amino acids put together in space without life. Yeah, she's claiming that there's proteins in space rocks. Yeah, fundamentally, it's not energetically favorable, is it? It's not a chemical reaction that can happen. It requires life.
Yeah, she's saying life
Energy.
already pre-exists in the sky vacuum and we have it, we found it. Not only have they found soil in the sky, they've found life in the sky. Information is the crux of what she's saying, because what was required to have these amino acids? Information.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just a lie. It's complete fraud.
been that slight shadow of a doubt there that actually what you are finding in the meteorites that have impacted Earth.
That you've got to put the intonation on that they have impacted Earth. Prove it. Prove this rock came from a sky vacuum. You can't. It's a rock of unknown origin that may or may not have amino acids in it. And if it did, so what? If I knew that it hadn't come out of the ground and wasn't recently covered in worms, then I might be impressed.
Is just contaminants from Earth itself. So
why would you need to drop that little disclaimer in? What, in case you find out that the contaminants are only possible on Earth at a later date? Yeah, they've always got to drop these little subtle get-out-of-jail cards into their rhetoric. Just in case we find out that it couldn't possibly have come from space, we'll drop in that it could be that this is entirely invalidated because the entire thing's contaminated. Oh, really? So it could be the case that this is entirely validated, but you're moving forward and validating our entire life history with it. But just in case that's invalidated because it couldn't possibly have occurred in Narnia, after all, within our own rhetoric of Narnia, we'll just say that there could be contamination that could invalidate all of this later, just in case.
Should you be able to test whether this pristine sample from Bennu contains amino acids and proteins in it is something that...
Could you test that it's from Bennu? How are you going to do that?
Astrobiologists are incredibly excited for, especially because the material that makes up Bennu is thought to be incredibly old, about 4.5 billion years old, right from the early days of the solar system. So this is definitely one where
you thought it would be from the early parts of the solar system, and if you get your hands on it and put some acid on it, it's pretty much certainly going to be confirming what you've already decided and that people have pretty much thought is going to be the case. Because they've pretty much thought it and they're very excited about it. And when they get their hand on this very, very small measurement, which has been very precisely measured out, and drip a bit of acid on it, hell yeah, we're going to confirm our bullshit.
Those spectroscopy and spectrometry techniques will shine. The second hypothesis that I wanted to highlight that the team will be testing is this idea that asteroids also brought water to the early Earth. Now,
did asteroids come to Earth? Would be a better question. Did asteroids, assuming that they've definitely come to Earth and definitely came from the sky vacuum, bring water with them? You see, this question seems to automatically include the assumption that these rocks came from the sky. Yeah, I wouldn't be going with that. I'd want to know that they definitely did come from the sky, because that seems utterly absurd to me. Go ahead, Adam.
It was just a validation of what was going to validate it. Spectroscopy will shine, I think was her phrase. That's what's going to validate it. The most important part, yeah, she just completely skipped over. Any validation that she could be doing, it will just shine. Which is a very odd non-scientific terminology. It's a little bit wishy-washy, sleight of handing. It will just shine. It'll just, and the magic will happen and prove everything we want.
Well, spectroscopy is a science. So if spectroscopy gets involved, we've got proof at the end, Adam. So it will shine. It's spectroscopy.
It's like saying that if we find in this meteorite the materials to make ink and paper, that means that people are writing books in Narnia.
They've got so many hypotheses for things that it'll mean already. They've only got to get one result and they'll be so happy that when so much acid dissolves that much rock, that one of those multitude of nonsensical just so stories that they're presenting as the hypotheses for once they've dropped acid on. One of them, they'll of course they'll reject a couple in the interest of, empiricism, but one of them will give them great new understandings, won't it? And confirm what they've been thinking all along.
Yeah, and they can babble on about the confirmation within the hypothesis as opposed to covering whether or not the rock of unknown origin actually came from a sky vacuum with machinery that's been presumably made by the greatest of the engineers we have that are paid the highest possible salaries to be given to a third party to send into the sky vacuum, wink, wink. Shout out to Crockett, who says, hey, y'all. Thank you for the super chat. My bad, I've just got to cue the video.
Now, if you're a long-term subscriber of this channel, you will have heard me talk about this idea before, because we don't know where Earth got its water from. There's something in astrophysics called the snow line. Essentially, it's the distance from a star beyond which the temperature...
Why is she going into this? We've got no idea. Now hear my just so story I've made up. Would you not feel reasonable as an audience member if I say to you, I really have no idea what the cause of entropy is. I don't know. However, if I tell you a little story about Xenu, yeah, you know Xenu, you've heard of him from Scientology, how he started an essentially nuclear reactor at the start of the known existence, and that set in motion what we describe as the arrow of time. Now, if I were to offer you up that story and say that if and only if I can get hold of some Turkish delight from Narnia, which was around about, you know, in terms of history and timeline and crossing over of worlds, a similar sort of timeline to Xenu's timeline, then I can test the Turkish delights and confirm whether or not they've got a certain amount of amino acids in them. And if they have, then that will essentially confirm my timeline for Xenu starting the arrow of time with his nuclear reactor. So I'm very excited. I've written all this down. I've called it a hypothesis. I'm a scientist. And get this, this is the icing on the cake. We're going to get spectroscopy involved. It's going to shine. Xenu's going to have confirmed to have started the arrow of time. It's all very exciting times. Now, if I offered you that as a story, in lieu and now forgetting all about, because there's enough distance between me saying we genuinely don't know what started entropy, beyond looking at the ontological primitives, I'll add that in case somebody pulls me on it, would the story suffice? I mean, would that be enough? I mean, I know I've just told you I don't know, but I did offer a pretty good story. Would you all agree?
Yes, awesome story.
Their story concerning what things are out in their sky vacuum all begins and ends with spectroscopy. Because it all begins and ends with what they claim the composition of their sun is. Everything starts there. That was their starting point. And they just built from that. Every star is a derivative of our own solar system star, the sun. And it all started and ends. It all starts and ends right there.
Indeedy.
It was It was the original spectroscopers that were claimed to tell everyone what the sun was. You know that, don't you?
Yeah.
Did I tell you that before?
Yes, we're aware.
They told everyone the sun was yellow helium. That's why it's called Helios. Plasma, right? And it has hydrogen plasma now as well, supposedly. But yellow helium plasma, there is no such thing.
No.
The only place it exists.
No such thing.
The only place.
You're saying there's no such thing. This is where spectroscopy really does shine.
But see,
How did they measure that?
The only place where yellow helium plasma exists is on their sun in their sky vacuum. In reality, no such thing as yellow helium plasma exists.
However, there is a hypothesis out there, Brian, I don't know if you're aware of this, that says if we can get hold of... I mean, I am currently campaigning to get hold of some of the OSIRIS-REx sky vacuum soil because, believe it or not, if I can get hold of some of that and dissolve it in, not acid, but some different solvent, I'm pretty sure that I can actually confirm the helium content of the sun. So, you know, based on that, I've put up a petition. I've asked people to smash the super chat. I've asked people to support me on PayPal. And if I can just raise a couple of billion, we can petition to get at least 3 micrograms of that soil. So are you with me?
Nathan, the scary thing is people believe this. This is crazy.
How did they measure this?
With a very, very precise scale.
It doesn't matter. Don't you know it does not matter how they measured it? Whatever she says, people are they're gonna lap it up.
Well, I've just looked it up.
Well,
it was a scientific scale they used.
It's a reference frame, right, John?
Yes. It's a reference to something. What's it? What are they referencing when they measure
I'm going to have
this?
to close this window. There's something going past. Hold on. You're going to need a flat earth for that.
I'm sure they leveled their instrument and aimed it at the sun, you know,
Leveled?
to get it precise.
Leveled their instrument?
No, they couldn't. Never mind. They probably, you can't do that on a sphere. Never mind.
You can't do that on a sphere. Like I was explaining earlier when we were going through it with Becky, you know, detailing orbital motions, these models that have been, you know, commissioned by the church in essence to let them know when Easter's going to be, more accurately. They're not capable of working out how our world works. It's absurd. It's like saying I'm going to go into The Sims on my PC and see if I can figure out how entropy works in the real world. It's just like, what are you doing? No, don't reify your models and tell us that we're actually getting stuff from the orbital motion that's described by Kepler. What are you doing, love? No, we're not actually on a ball. You know, Kepler's got all of those extrapolations from a flat plane he's measured. How can we be falling around a ball? Yeah, you just don't comprehend how these models work. How sad.
No, it's actually not true. Kepler got all of his information from astrology, something they would call woo-woo. You know what I mean? They would call that woo-woo. It's so bad that astrology has to call itself pseudoscience, so it's not trying to claim to be science like astronomy. But that's where everything that Kepler knew, and Brahe also, and Galileo, it all comes from astrology. Because that's how they learned astronomy, was through that.
But all it is,
so everything from
astrology means is the logic of the stars. That's what it means. All astronomy means is naming stars, giving them names, giving them stories. But they want to, as Brian's just pointed out, call astrologic, if you want to extrapolate it out a little bit, not quite accurate, but they want to call it pseudoscience, and they've painted it as such when they give you the stars, as in the newspaper with your star sign and what's going to happen when you meet a tall, dark stranger tomorrow. Well, that's how they've turned figuring out the patterns of the stars, because it's pretty basic astrology, actually, when you break down what it actually is, versus what it's been used for. Well, what it's been used for by the people who developed heliocentrism was knowing where the patterns of the stars would lay. Very useful if you're going to talk about orbits based on flat plane measurements of those stars that were derived from the people who were measuring their logic, tracking their patterns. But that's all they were doing. Well, if that's what people understood this to be, they'd go, hold on, so you mean how the stars just function is dealt with by astrology? Yeah, isn't that obvious? What you hear is some witch with a crystal ball talking about it, and suddenly it's woo-woo. Carry on, Brian.
No, but that's it. I mean, the very thing they would laugh at and call woo-woo is the origin of all their BS. It all began and ended there. But when one of them speaks about Kepler, they won't speak about his astrological charts that he was famous for. They won't speak about any of that. They'll only speak about him being an astronomer. The same with Brahe and Galileo and others. They won't speak about that because it's a source of embarrassment for them. You know, we don't. You know, it's stupid, but that's the truth.
Temperature is low enough that you start to get ice forming. So that could be water ice, but it could also be methane ice or ammonia ice, for example. And what that means is that if you're then forming planets out at that distance a long way from the star, then you've got...
You're going to need a whole bunch of conceptual gravitational accretion concepts in order to describe this nonsensical model-based reification out in a sky vacuum that you think you've got this soil from, Becky. I mean, you're currently in total la-la land as far as I'm concerned.
Bits of rock that start to come together, but you've also...
No, bits of rock are coming from sky vacuums.
Also got bits of ice in the mix as well that can go into forming those planets. But...
Go to Hawaii. Watch how the world produces surface level materials. You can see it being pumped out of the ground. Literally. Yeah? That's how islands get developed. That's how the world is growing, if you want to see it in that way. Now, that's something I can physically reference and show you. You can go to yourself and watch happen. Meanwhile, just taken on Becky's, it definitely did impact the ground. you've got nothing to actually verify in this regard from Becky. Nothing. And all you've got at the end of it is a story, an origin story, for their evolution and heliocentrism, which is a model-based reification. She's talking within the reification currently, so she's just in La La Land.
Closer into the star, inside the snow line.
Closer? What, based on Huygens' assumptions that gave you the scale to tell us how close or far we are? Bearing in mind that that scale has changed multiple times. So, but just at this particular point, we know how close or far. No, it's your total La La Land, love.
The ice will just vaporize and you will form a planet with no water. Now, the snow line in the solar system is currently 5 times the Earth-Sun distance. Now,
really? The sun distance has been an extrapolation that's taken from our base measurements of either a derivation of a Al-Biruni measurement of dip or elevation angle measurements to Polaris. Okay, those are both flat plane requirements and do not in any way infer that we've got an Earth that can give you a snow line. Because that would put Earth as a reification, as a ball in a sky vacuum, floating around in an orbital description given to you by Kepler at a scale given to you by Huygens. Utterly absurd La La Land nonsense, Becky. This graph means nothing.
I was a bit closer in the past because there was a lot more dust surrounding the sun while the planets were...
Was there? Yeah, you look really, really confident about that bullshit. While you nod and snarl and tell us about how much more dust there was in the past. Because you went back there, didn't you, and checked and validated this. With science and spectroscopy, because that's also time travel, isn't it? When spectroscopy looks at stuff, it's basically looking at the past.
Still forming, which cooled things down a little bit. And so that brought the snow line to 2.7-ish times the Earth-Sun distance, which is around...
Which is made up by Huygens and Kepler.
Around about the asteroid belt.
Round about the asteroid belt? What asteroid belt? What, based on Huygens and Kepler and what they have derived in orbital motions in a model to best tell when Easter's going to be? You think that that puts a distance that you can describe a snow line with in this model? We don't live in this model. This is not the world, Becky.
Area. So as far as we know, we think that...
As far as you know, you don't know anything. You've just made every last thing you just said up.
While Earth was forming, there was...
You don't know any of that.
No water in this part of the solar system.
There is no solar system. Kepler and Huygens' orbital-based models aren't where we live.
For Earth to get its water...
No. That's fantastic proof. See, they know that at this part of the solar system, there is no water because they don't see space snow. It's good logic.
There you go. When you say they don't see it, they're looking at the sky and looking at twinkling lights. But they're describing those twinkling lights in Kepler and Huygens' orbital motions. They're not in orbital motions. We're not falling around the sun in a solar system, which is all she's babbled on. It's just descriptions of the solar system. We are not falling around the sun.
If you believe all that, then you can get proof that there's no water on the asteroid belt because there isn't space snow.
At the distance she's ascribed, and there should be...
the snow line.
According to her, there should be snow at that line. Well, no. The scale's from Huygens.
Well, she's got 4.7-ish% science for that.
4.7-ish% science.
To have been brought by asteroids and comets.
No, they haven't, Becky. You're going to validate. That's all I care about in this video. Prove this came from a rock in a sky vacuum. That's it. You can't. First, you'd need to demonstrate that we could be breathing for the sky to be a vacuum to go and get a rock from. You'll never do that because it's a second law of thermodynamics violation. If the sky was a vacuum for these rocks to come from, meaning that you've sent out an projectile of some description with a mechanical arm to scoop up stuff from rocks in sky vacuums, and it can leave the ground and go out into that area, then so can all the gas we're breathing. The high pressure gas needs to press on something. And if there's nothing but an empty area of volume above our heads in the sky, then that's where all the gas would go as it expands in all directions in line with entropic law. That's laws of nature. How stuff always occurs. Gas always fills space. So the gas we're breathing at pressure would always fill space, Becky? So you're not going to be sending out rockets to go and scoop up this soil of unknown origin. You're now telling us all about how it's come from space.
From beyond the snow line at the edge of the solar system.
Before you go, Nath.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think there might be a super chat for you.
Indeedy,
sure if
from
you know.
FE Patriot. Wow, 100 Canadian dollars. Thank you very much indeed. Becky wants everyone to worship the ancient Greek sun god, Helios, the mythical temple of heliocentrism. Indeed, Helios, the heliocentric model, sun at center, earth tilted towards it. Yeah, we don't live in a model. Thank you so much for the super chat, FE Patriot. Thank you, Adam.
To the inner solar system and then impact with the Earth, and then the ice melts and you start to form oceans on Earth. Now, to test that hypothesis, what you can do is compare the ratio of normal hydrogen to its isotope, heavy hydrogen, aka deuterium. And you can...
Like, drawing a comparison is not a hypothesis. You can draw this comparison. So, is there an effect we're studying by any chance? Because a hypothesis is a supposition of your presumed cause of an effect. You're making comparisons of things, Becky, and calling it a hypothesis. You're getting this, ladies and gentlemen. You're getting this is how you have been swindled, defrauded. Go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting you. It's just like, what is actually happening? Like, what's the thing that's happening that's going to make it a hypothesis?
Nothing. They're making a comparison.
Telling us how they make oceans.
Nothing. They're
She's
comparing.
telling us how God made the oceans.
That's what
she's presupposing how it all came to. Hold on, she's presupposing how it all came to be. Then, basically, and that's it.
Yes, after making a comparison. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, sorry. No, she's not telling you how it happens. She isn't telling you how it happens. She's not telling you how hydrogen is formed. That's what she's not telling you. Because she doesn't have a clue how hydrogen is formed. None of them do.
No,
Yeah,
they have got a story, though.
Trying to tell
No,
us.
that's part of the rhetoric, isn't it? It's formed in the heart of dying stars like everything else.
No, there's not. They can't show how hydrogen is formed in our world. Never mind their outer world, their fantasy. They can't show. They know if you look into it, it's a circle joke. They can't show you how hydrogen is formed. They can show oxygen, but they can't show hydrogen.
What?
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's a circle joke.
I didn't know that.
It's a circle joke. When it comes to hydrogen, if you look into it, they literally bring you around in a circle as many times as possible till you get tired. They can never actually show you how hydrogen gets formed.
Okay, I didn't know that.
You can compare that ratio
And
in
they
the
can't show you how
hydrogen.
water gets formed either.
What?
They can only show.
Well, that's why that's part of
they
the
can't
did
show
know
you how
that.
hydrogen gets formed.
The water bit, that's why I do know. That's why it was heavily focused on. Glad you brought that up. Right, that's why it's part of this story. That I did know.
Yeah.
Yes, they can describe the cycle. Okay, well, that's a cycle. Where did it come from? Oh, well, it came from beyond the snow line. So long as we're in that period, in that section of the Goldilocks zone, then liquid water will exist. That's part of their rhetoric. That I did know. I didn't know the hydrogen bit, though. That's fascinating. I'll ask you about that in the after show, Brian.
But I don't get this. Like, what's the issue? Like, we don't know how the atoms came to be. Well,
yes.
that's a reasonable statement to
No,
make, right? We know how atoms combine to make molecules, but that's it.
No, Owen, it's an origin story. So that's a problem for them because it's an origin story. So for water, well, we've got to figure out where it would be developed, where it would be produced and be allowable to be in our nice, warm Goldilocks zone and be it liquid so we can have life. Well, they've got to figure that out. They don't know, do they? But it's an origin story.
I'm sorry, man. So it's an ontological primitive issue that they're getting hung up on.
Correct. I dropped that in earlier as well when I was explaining it from the context of their position to say, well, yes, you do have an answer. It's the ontological primitives. They just never want to get there. They just want to invent ad hoc, just so stories for creations of things, in this case, water, but also hydrogen, as I've just found out.
Yeah, but it's going to be... This is the pure correlation she's about to cite now.
Yep.
That makes up water, H2O, in the asteroid sample from Bennu compared to on Earth. If this deuterium over hydrogen ratio, or D over H, is the same for both the sample from Bennu and on Earth, then you've got a lot more evidence to support the...
Doesn't that sound like something that would have to fall in line with entropic law, Adam?
Sounds like correlation.
Yeah, but the correlation with entropic law, something that's being defied in the area that they're claiming to gather the soil from.
Yeah, but if you do something in a box, then that means that that also has to have happened somehow in some way in the total reality, right?
They'll draw that correlation, as Adam keeps saying, yeah.
The idea that the water on Earth comes from the same place as any water ice on Bennu. The
There you go. The perfect summary. Thank you, Becky. Right on time.
far reaches of the solar system
We don't live
beyond
in a solar system. It's a Kepler-based model. Reification fallacy, Becky.
the snow line,
Far
from which
reaches.
point
The
Bennu
far
migrated
reaches.
inwards to become a near-Earth.
HelloFresh is the
Okay, they're probably 2/3 of the way through this video. We'll keep going a little bit. We're a little bit over on... I'll try and keep these live shows to an hour, but we've been doing them longer and longer recently.
Question of whether Bennu is a rubble pile. And the reason that this is
Yeah, that's the main question. Do you get soil from space? Space being a second law of thermodynamics violation, sky vacuum. So, to put it
Wait.
more succinctly, do you get sky soil? No, you don't. That's the main question there.
Did she say,
Nathan,
did she
after
say
Neil.
Barney Rubble?
No, she didn't say Barney Rubble.
She may as well have.
Well, you need a Flintstone for that. Anyway, I got to get going, but I just want to say the far reaches of space and all this second law of thermodynamics violation about outer space, the only way they keep that alive in people's mind is to say that this spacecraft skimmed off an asteroid, got some grams of dirt, brought it, deposited via a capsule, is on its way to another asteroid to do another smash and grab. And so everyone's focused on this thing that landed supposedly from out there and these grams. And the whole thing is giving credence to a solar system outer space, which is a violation of second law of thermodynamics. Can't have a vacuum next to gas pressure and say you have outer space the way they do.
And with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit me up on PayPal, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!